Hey everyone, this is Sarah with sewingpartsonline.com, and today we're going to be going over the cut and hem foot. Now, if you love the look of a serger but don't have one, this is the foot you want to use. I'm going to show you how to install it and how to use it on your projects. So there are a couple of parts to our Singer side cutter that we can point out. Because this is a Singer, I'm going to install this onto my Singer sewing machine. But here we go. We got a couple numbers up here, and these are all a centimeter apart. Well, so the 0 to 10 is a centimeter, and 0 to 5 is half a centimeter. Half a centimeter is just a little bit smaller than 1/4 of an inch. So that's kind of how you gauge your seam allowance that's going to be cut off. Up here in the front is a nice sharp blade, and it's got the plastic cover to go around it to protect your fingers. We turn to the side. You can see this goes onto the needle holder, this little arm, and right here is where we put the shank screw to attach onto our machine. Also, if you do look at the pressure foot, you can kind of see that it looks similar to an overcast foot because we're going to be using overcast stitches or like zigzag stitches. So now to install it, all you need to do is take off the foot and the shank that you have on. Move that out of the way. Come up from behind and try to wiggle the little arm onto the needle holder first, and then come around onto the shank screw. There we go. Just tighten it, make sure it's nice and snug. And there you go, you are ready to sew. So before you start sewing, make sure you cut a nice notch into the seam allowance because your stitches will start behind the blade. So line up that cut notch right behind your blade, right where the needle is, and then you can start sewing. You can't start with your fabric right at the blade because everything gets jammed and it's just not very good. You'll notice here that I did take off the plastic guard. I just prefer to sew without it, but make sure if you take yours off to replace it before you store your pressure foot. Remember with this, we are using an overcast. Basically, this is just an overcast foot with a giant razor blade on it. So if you don't know how to use overcast foot or how to use the overcast stitches, you can refer to one of our older videos on how to use an overcast foot. So with this woven, I'm using an overcast stitch. For knits, make sure to use a zigzag stitch. And I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way to the end. You'll notice I'm sewing very slowly because this is a big hunk of equipment. So just kind of start slow until you get the hang of it. I'm going to nip the threads. Sometimes with this one, you'll notice that some fabric will hang over the stitch. Just nip that with your scissors. And there we go, a nice finished edge. Now to go around corners, you want to stop about 1/4 of an inch or whatever seam allowance you're using before you reach the edge, then cut out a notch and sew just as we did. The same exact way. Now there are a couple ways that you can go around a corner. This is just one of the methods. Another method is to just continue sewing right to the edge and then cut out a notch and then sew right over those threads. I prefer this method because I can back stitch on the previous seam and I don't have to worry about anything coming loose. The problem is you cannot pivot with this just like you can't pivot on a serger. So if you have prior experience with a serger, you kind of understand how this works. But you can go around curves. It's just the corners that are a little bit trickier. And then we're going to nip the threads. And there we go, a nice finished edge. So that was the cut and hem foot. To purchase your cut and hem foot, visit us online at sewingpartsonline.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/sewingpartsonline.